and welcome. I'm Jackie Lockie, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at existing financial planning professionals, as well as those looking to enter the financial planning profession. This particular series of podcasts is focusing on financial planning businesses. We share new ideas and challenge your thought processes to help you improve your service to your clients. We have some amazing guests lined up, helping you look at things very differently. I hope that you enjoy today's podcast episode. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lockie, your financial planning maestro. And on today's podcast, I have a super special guest, and that is Jonathan Gibson from Wells Gibson up in Dundee. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hello, Jackie. Lovely to be invited onto your podcast.
Great to have you here. Now, we are going to talk all things kind of certified financial planner related and also accredited financial planning firm related, as Wells Gibson are the 2021 winners of the CISI Accredited Financial Planner of the Year Award, aren't you?
That's right, yes. It was a big surprise for us, but delighted nonetheless.
Yes. So we're going to get into all of that in a minute, but I'm going to start at the very beginning and we're going to find out a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today. So let's kick off by finding out a little bit about why you decided to join the financial planning profession, how you got involved and how you fell in love with it.
So my background was I had obviously been introduced to the world of financial services through the banking sector by my late grandfather. And a few years later, my late father introduced me to the world of, I suppose, there was an insurance company where I was essentially a salesman, I guess, selling everything from horrible endowment policies to with profits bonds and personal pensions and so forth, as well as life assurance policies. And in 2001, I was made redundant from that company, and I found myself working as a training development manager with one of the IFA networks. And I, at the same time, was starting to do further exams. I think at that time it was the Advanced Financial Planning Certificate.
Yes.
And something I just couldn't understand why I was doing these qualifications or these exams and encouraging the IFAs whom I was looking after in this network to do further exams. And I could never really get my head around how we do all these professional exams, but actually people only pay you if they buy a product or a financial product. And it was at that time I attended a presentation by Nick Kahn, who was the then chief exec of the Institute of Financial Planning. It was a presentation in Glasgow. There was a few people there. It wasn't many. It was a very intimate presentation, and Nick really just explained what financial planning is and highlighted the whole 6-stage process. And part of that was introducing us to financial forecasting or cash flow modeling planning. And he was accompanied by a woman, Diane, somebody or another from, I think she worked for Presswood at the time. And that was very much the start where I thought, my goodness, there is another way of doing this where actually people will pay a fee for a financial plan. And that was very much and something just resonated with me. I thought, that's what I want to be part of. That just seems to speak volumes, if you like, as far as I was concerned. It just seemed the right thing. Yeah. And shortly after that, I then attended a presentation by David Norton. And at that meeting, the late David Norton, and David Norton stood up again. And that was I think that was at Aegon's buildings in Edinburgh. And that's the first time I met Sandy Robertson of Acumen. And it just all sort of really started to happen from there on, where I thought, this just makes sense, where you take on a limited number of clients and provide good financial planning. And I think it was the first time that I ever heard the expression that financial planning has the power to change lives. I don't know if it was David Norton that said that or somebody else, but really through that initial meeting with Nick Cann, becoming involved with the Institute of Financial Planning, and then meeting other like-minded financial planners of the IFP community, I think that pretty much was, I guess, which is probably why I am where I am now.
And so I guess Nick probably told you all about the CFP and the 6-step process. And because obviously if you were still working at the network then, what was your transition? Did you kind of just pack up and go and start up your own business, or did you stay there whilst undertaking the CFP, or what happened?
Yeah, good question. So I became clear that I definitely wanted to get back into the advice side of things. I think something resonated with me, looking after a number of independent financial advisors, some who were self-employed, some, worked alongside a firm of solicitors, some were larger firms. There was a large firm of Sterling I looked after. There's something I liked. I was attracted to this idea of being my own boss, that autonomy, freedom, and do my own thing. I think that was the attraction, but realized that to go from having worked for an insurance company where you were essentially limited to the financial products you were able to advise on. I had never had any experiences of actually being an independent financial advisor, let alone be a financial planner. And I hadn't, albeit I'd been exposed for 2 years working with one of the networks, I didn't really have practical hands-on experience. I knew, the old advice model of complete a fact find and then have a sales meeting where you present a product to a client. But that was really the extent of it. So I realized I had in myself, I knew where I wanted to be, but knew exactly where I was now and knew where the gaps were. And just at that time, that's where I was introduced to Paul Lothian. Paul Lothian is obviously a past PFS president, and Paul at that time was leading a small-ish IFA practice in Dundee. And Paul and I started chatting, and Paul said, look, if you want, why don't you come and join me in this business? And I like this idea, this move towards fee-based financial planning and all the rest of it. And Paul actually, it was actually him who said, why don't you trade as Verus? So Verus Financial Planning and that was at that time was a trading style of his company. And the company he was involved with had been established by his family, and he was obviously, the succession plan for that. And so Paul had this IFA business. He had all the experience as an IFA, technical knowledge around, everything, pension transfers and so forth, defined benefit pension transfers and so forth. So that was very much my introduction to back in 2004. So you're talking 18 years ago, back into that environment. And I just slowly but surely, I guess was, out there doing a bit of networking, learning everything there is to know about the financial planning 6-stage process, time to apply it. It was just the steepest learning curve I've ever been on. And at the same time, going through the AFPC, and a couple of things happened around about 2000. So in 2004 that happened. And at the start of 2005, I had done completed the CFP certificate. So I had AFPC and the CFP license. And at that time, Paul and I had been approached by a firm of accountants asking if we'd be interested in establishing a joint venture. And it was at that point where Verus Financial Planning became a limited company. And we liked, it just all seemed to fit perfectly well, because the one thing I needed was exposure to more clients. So what better way than, to be in business with a firm of accountants, Verus being Latin for true, real, proper, right. Well, it seemed to be a name, certainly consistent with our vision of financial planning. So it all fitted nice. So that's really how it happened. From meeting Nick Cann, then meeting Paul, and all of a sudden being in business with a firm of accountants.
That's fantastic, isn't it? So all basically in the space of 12 months or so from meeting Paul and going into business, you were all...
Yeah, certainly 18 months or so. Had certainly completed the AFPC, had completed the CFP certificate, which was probably taught me more about financial planning than anything has. And then, of course, having Paul's experience as an IFA at that time, and combined with going into business with a firm of accountants, it was a steep learning curve.
Yes, it certainly sounds like it.
In so many ways.
And so, because obviously at that point you still weren't running your own business, you were in partnership with Paul and then, with the accountant. So at what point, you must have been learning all, in the background all about how to start your own business as well. Talk about learning, steep learning curve. So many major strands of information to take in and assimilate, isn't there, before you actually started Wells Gibson?
Yes, and I think that what we launched, so that business was established in 2005, if I remember rightly, and then in 2010 we were introduced to another large accountancy firm, or a larger accountancy firm in Aberdeen. Virtue of our first joint venture, if you like, the partners introduced us to the partners of this other accountancy firm, and then in January 2011, Paul and I found ourselves involved with a second joint venture with a larger firm of accountants. So between 2005 and 2015, when I eventually decided to leave, the JV or the joint venture setup, 10 years working with accountants where you've been in a really professional environment, and you've learned the importance of growing your business through people, the importance of the financials, marketing, all of that, all these business skills, I guess, combined with having exposure to higher net worth clients than I might have otherwise been introduced to or exposed to had we not had these joint ventures. I think, and exposure to lots of different aspects of financial planning, whether it be investing a windfall from sale of a business or inheritance, or right down to planning for company directors. There's a perfect environment, I think, to the perfect segue to what Wells Gibson's about.
Yes.
It was 10 years that where it was just constant learning, as you can imagine, and constant exposure to different circumstances and having to learn fast, being thrown in the deep end in a lot of ways. But and what happened was that the second joint venture around about the 2014 mark or 2013 mark, it became very clear that the venture in Aberdeen was such that it was moving at such a rate that it really needed either myself or Paul or somebody to lead that business in a fuller capacity. And I made the decision to leave the first joint venture and go full into the second venture. And at that point, that's where Paul obviously and still to this day runs a very successful. Verus is still a very successful business and continues to thrive. And I went into the second joint venture in Aberdeen. So, but the 10 years between 2005 and 2015 were 10 years whereby, the learning was quite incredible.
I can imagine. Yes.
But even just the establishing of joint ventures and it was all completely new territory to me, and And then, of course, it's a completely different environment when you're introduced to clients by a partner of an accountancy firm, because you realize that the client has that relationship with the partner, and then you're being introduced to those clients as the financial planner. So very different environment to perhaps the environment I operate in now, but it certainly served as 10 really important years, Jackie, to, probably made me a lot more business wise than I would have otherwise been.
I can remember in my younger days, I worked with a firm of accountants in Bristol, actually, and there were 40 accountants, and there were 3 of us working in the financial planning department of the arm of it. And we didn't get much business from most of the accountants, probably for about 2 years, while they were kicking our tires to see what kind of people we were and if we really knew anything and things like that. And then they would kind of pop their nose around the door and say, oh, well, hypothetically, if you had a client like this, what would you do? And so it was quite a learning curve from my point of view as well. I was only very young then, but I guess because you were going into a joint venture, you probably had a different structure. Did you find anything like that in the accountancy firm? Were people, did they treat you as a partner, or were they, was it slightly different, as you say, because you're kind of the follow-on guy, aren't you, with the financial planning?
Well, I think because both the joint ventures were established as limited companies, and you were director, shareholder, then we're all the same. We're responsible for the running of a company. I guess because both Paul and myself were founding directors, shareholders of those companies, and our business and knowledge is the financial planning sector, that that the accountants were very much left us to that, because it's an area we obviously are clearly closer to and have greater knowledge of. But there's no question about it, when you're dealing with the clients of an accountancy firm, that there's going to be a lot of collaboration on when it comes to the financial planning, particularly around tax and calculating things like unused pension allowances or whatever. You certainly, there was a lot of collaboration with the accountants when preparing or going through the financial planning process with the clients. But it certainly my technical knowledge wouldn't be what it is had I not been in those environments, and then just knowledge of company structures, holding companies, all that type of thing, I guess. And
how to read accounts and all that kind of stuff.
It's just so much, exposed to, and not least that, the professional environment that you tend to find, because as a profession, accountants, obviously working on a fee basis for years compared to our sector. So, you're in an environment where it was, the transition to fees was so much easier for us because clients were used to that virtue of dealing with accountants for so long. So
yes, you're already pushing on an open door, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And accountants still clearly, the nature of their business, they're dealing with company directors and companies and having to submit accounts, company accounts, and then you've got auditing and all these other sectors that accountants offer. That it follows that they're clearly, if they have a strong relationship with their clients, it follows that we shouldn't be surprised that they are in front of higher net worth clients.
Yeah. And so 2015, then you stepped away and started Wells Gibson. And I know from our work together, actually, that you have a really strong vision of the future, both of Wells Gibson and training, the financial planners of the future, don't you?
Yeah, I certainly, and I guess maybe this is something I picked up from, having been in business with the accountants, and particularly the second joint venture with AEB, that the accountants bring in so many graduates every year, and these graduates grow with the business. And I think that, I think certainly when I set up Wells Gibson, I was a lot clearer about why I want to do this. And I was very clear about what I want to do and how I'm going to do it and who I want to serve. And I think these things were very, very important. Being clear about these things. And I think when you're clearer about that, the sort of why, how, and what, and who you want to serve, that feeds in clearly to your, the vision that you have for the business and your mission statement. And I think the three P's, what I call the three P's, are what's important. I think it's people. If you're going to grow, if we're going to grow a business, we're going to have to grow people, and by growing people, you're going to grow a profession.
Yep.
That's the reality. There's no way this profession is going to. I still think it's an emerging profession. Still use that term, but it is a profession, and if we want to grow it, we're going to have to grow people. And if we grow people, then we grow our business. Or if we're growing people to grow our business, in turn, we're going to grow a profession. And I see that as key. So the three P's, people, process, and profile, are the three things I think are hugely important for the growth of Wells Gibson and perhaps any financial planning business.
Yes.
So
and you have quite a niche, don't you?
That started a way back. That was very much my late father. When we were involved in the joint venture, when Verus was the first joint venture, and sadly we'd only established that in August 2005, and in December 2005, my dad discovered he had cancer of the esophagus, and was told he wasn't probably going to live much more than 9 months. And Dad was delighted to see that. We'd established this joint venture and thought it was wonderful. He'd obviously been in financial services and thought it was a great place to be. But I always remember my dad saying to me, he said, "Look, this is great. This is the right environment to be introduced to clients and so forth." And Dad said, one thing you should try and do though is don't become dependent on the accountants. If you like, that's wonderful. But you want to get to a stage where what comes from the accountants is icing on the cake. So in other words, make sure you're still looking for your own clients, if you like, and you're out there. And at that time, I happened to be introduced to the dental sector by a very good friend of mine who had experience of the 6-stage process, I suppose. And that in turn then led to being introduced to NHS Education for Scotland, and I started running short courses for dentists in conjunction with the NHS Education for Scotland, and in turn was introduced to a number of dentists who are still clients to this day. So, but I don't deal exclusively with dentists, because actually you find dentists know other people. It's that thing where they can introduce you to other dentists, but you tend to find that. They introduce you to other people. So, but we certainly deal with a lot of owners of dental practices, predominantly private practice dentists, I suspect, who maybe do some NHS work. But that tends to be, so that really I suppose that's how that came about, Jackie.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's funny how you developing your business and actually, the advice from your dad, I mean, that's absolutely gold dust, isn't it? Giving you, we can become complacent quite easily and kind of fall into a rut and be reliant on the situation around us. But actually, being able to build a business yourself and actually drive it the way that you want to, sharing your own vision and helping, build, a bigger and better profession of the future is a really important part. I know important part of, the makeup of you personally, as well as Wells Gibson in its entirety. So tell us about the sorts of things, how you've developed your staff over, the last, 7 years now? I think it's just past 7 years, isn't it? Wells Gibson is 7 years old. So give us a few examples of the sorts of things that you've done to help support and develop your staff along the way.
Yeah, so I suppose So we're going into our 7th financial year. It's actually, I think 7th. I think we've had 6 complete years, and up till now, as I said, I think it comes back to this whole thing that I don't think I'm the sort of person who's just meant to be a financial planner for 20 clients working from the spare bedroom in the house. If you know, I think I'm driven by wanting to build a business and make a difference to the lives of as many people as possible. And to do that, I'm going to have to grow people, because I just cannot do this on my own.
Yep.
And I'm convinced that bringing in apprentice trainees and graduate trainees is the way to go around that. And up until now, I mean, albeit we're only 6-year-old, we've taken on, I suppose we've had 3 graduates and 2 apprentices, I suppose. So we're a small team, but that's what I'm committed to. And it's incredibly exciting. It's really inspiring to come to work and just watch graduates grow, or the apprenticeship grow in confidence and just skills, and how quickly they absorb the information. Mm. And with some of the tools and applications we're using nowadays, they just turn to this stuff so quickly compared to maybe I would, yes. Financial planning software, and the like. So it's and in exactly the same way as that my late father passed the baton to me, I feel I've got a responsibility to pass the baton to the next generation. And I think that's probably ties in with my own purpose in life. And as I've said earlier, if we're going to grow the profession, we need to grow people. And it just happens to be, if you grow people, that in turn means you're probably going to grow your business. But our apprenticeships and our graduates now have a career path to follow, which shows them a sort of ideal path to follow: year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And they're all of them are either student or affiliate members of the CISI. They've all got access to the CISI professional refreshers, and we have a plan in place that says, here are the professional refreshers to focus on. It's a couple per month. We've tried to create an environment that's contemporary and is a lovely environment to work from. We employ flexible working. The younger ones now, they like that flexibility. So they like the idea of a 4-day week, having a day where they could study. If there's overtime, we'll pay overtime. If there's overtime needed, then it means there's a demand for our services. So, and the apprenticeships and the graduates all have access to a manager for weekly one-on-ones. So there's a weekly one-on-one to allow them 10 minutes to spend talking about what they want to talk about, and then the manager could spend 10 minutes talking about what they want to talk about, and then the final 10 minutes of that 30-minute session is spent on focusing on what we're working on, what needs to be achieved. So I think we're by no means the finished article, Jackie, but I think we're doing a lot of the right things, certainly. Yes. And I certainly feel for us, we need to just continue with that focus on bringing in the next generation, who really want to learn, and who can see the difference that financial planning can make to the lives of so many people.
Yes, and to take that baton over from you when you have hanging up your financial planning boots.
Yeah, well, that's right. Maybe sooner rather than later.
No, you're not going anywhere yet, matey.
Not allowed to go anywhere yet.
And so, developing your team, it's a critical part of Wells Gibson in your development, and actually on the back of that, you applied for the accredited financial planning firm of the year last year, didn't you? And I can remember talking to you, you're going, oh, we're going to run out of time, like all the accredited financial planning firms do. Oh, it's like any of us entering any award. Oh, I'm going to do that this year. And then you think, oh, yes, getting a bit busy. But you did it. And to all of your team's credit, they all pulled together amazingly well. And you won. So congratulations on that. And how has that helped with, I guess it must be really positive for the team, but also for Wells Gibson and your profile publicly?
Yes, and perhaps from a marketing perspective, that there's a lot more we could have done. But I think winning that award has certainly, I think it resonates well with the staff. They feel they're part of a team that's got a bit of life about it. I suppose we're not just plodding along. That we do want to push ourselves and be a winning financial planning firm, or a leading financial planning firm is maybe a better way of framing that. So I think it's great encouragement for the staff, for them to feel that they are part of a small business, a small but growing business that is striving to be at the vanguard of the profession. But it's also, I think, good for it's great PR, obviously, with existing clients, that the clients are are served by a firm that's been recognised, by a professional body. So it's truly wonderful, and because we're quite active when it comes to our marketing and so forth, great for the local community, great for a city like Dundee. We're not an Edinburgh business or a London business. We're a small business based in the city of discovery, is what Dundee is known as.
Yes.
So I think it's it's just great, and I was just absolutely delighted to have won. To win the award. And as I say, we're certainly not the finished article. I think we do a lot of things well, some things maybe not so well, but to be recognised, I guess the award, the award is about what impact we're making on the financial planning profession. And I think that our commitment to growing people, having taken on 3 graduates, 2 apprenticeships, probably resonated with the judging panel. The fact that our focus on marketing is the more prolific marketing. So the launch of my book in January, Purposeful Wealth, and in particular the 4th chapter of that, which has a spotlight on the financial planning versus financial advice and what to look for in a financial planner. The podcast following on from that, and then thirdly, we are a business that wants to put something back into the local community, and from local sponsorship and actually getting involved as a team with community type events and so forth. I think these type of things probably resonated with the judges as the Wells Gibson's a firm that is trying to make an impact.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it represents good PR for financial planning as a profession.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you actually about all of the outside work, volunteering that Wells Gibson does and the staff there do, because you've done a whole host of different things, haven't you? I saw that you've donated money to the local boxing ring, and you've been out planting trees and doing all sorts of different things, haven't you?
Yes, we did. Well, very recently we were so we got involved with Social Good Connect, which is I'm maybe not going to do this justice, but it's an organisation which is designed to help companies to be more engaged with social local community, charitable causes. And I really liked it. It really resonated with me. So, all the team understand that. And so there's opportunities for the team to get engaged. Any one of them could come to me and say, look, there's an opportunity for me to get involved. Is that okay? So I think that's really important, to put something back into the local community. But the event we were involved in with Social Good Connect was actually doing some gardening as such, but it was the Discovery Point, which down beside the new, where the V&A is, the V&A Museum, and the Discovery ship, and down at Discovery Point at the waterfront in Dundee. And it was really just a whole day of good team bonding, some laughter, good camaraderie. And it was great to do something. And I think there's certainly plans to do something similar again. And then the sponsorship side of things, we've donated money to a social enterprise, which we like to support, and it exists to essentially help people develop non-for-profit businesses, help people with certain skills, whether it's establishing a business and so forth. And the other sponsorship has been universities, about Dundee Boxing Club and so forth. So just try to do stuff that we think is important in the community, and but at the same time, it's stuff we want to do. We're not just doing these things because our name's in gold letters. Yes. We're doing. Often think, actually, although these things are profiled in social media, if anything, I think it's, what are we doing when no one's looking? If you like,
yes,
integrity and so forth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we have been, so, community, doing what we can in the community is important. But we recognise, Jackie, we are a little business. So, what we're able to do is perhaps not at the same scale as other businesses, but, we're certainly committed to it, and the staff are committed to that. And I actually think these things are really important if you're wanting to attract graduates and apprenticeships, because these things are becoming more and more important to the younger generation. Yes. It's about their values, and they want to be working for an employer that has values aligned with their values. So, I think all of these things are important if we want to make a bigger impact on the financial planning profession.
Yeah. And going back to, you mentioned, the launch of your podcast and the launch of your book. Podcast, great listen, as well as a book is a fantastic read. And you spend quite a bit of time doing the podcast and on social media, promoting messages and helping the public understand a bit more, as you said, your chapter 4, the difference between financial advice and financial planning and the sorts of things they're aimed at. Did you start off, I'm sure you probably didn't start off thinking, I know, I'm going to do a podcast, but, did you start off in mind when you sat down to write the book, was there a particular purpose or a particular trigger that started both of these things off?
I think my dad's death had a huge impact on me. I remember with, I always remember, and I've mentioned this in the book, that I remember when my dad was dying, and of all the places we could be walking, we walked around a cemetery. And I remember my dad just saying, when you look at the inscriptions on the gravestone, we don't see, Jonathan Gibson, successful financial planner, or, it's always, well, hopefully in my case, it'd be dearly loved husband and father.
Yes.
It's that type of thing. And so you realise about the things that are important in life. But that had an incredible, I suppose, impact on me. And I think we've all got a story to tell. I think we've all got a book in us. Mm-hmm. And from a very early, I'm thinking it must be around about 2010, 11, I had this desire. There was something about me to say, I want to write a book. And I guess as time went by, the longer time went by, that became clearer. And 2014, 2015, even clearer. And I just that one right book. The reality was, before Wells Gibson was launched, I didn't know what I wanted to write. I knew there was something in me burning to get out, but I didn't know what I wanted to write. And I wasn't really clear how to go about it. And it was only at that time was when I discovered, I was introduced to Georgia Kirk of Right Business Results. And I would liken it, I honestly would compare this to exactly the same way as if you were setting up a business and you wanted to, you want a website for your business and you want to publish a website. Well, as a business owner, you know what it is you do, you know how you do it, you know who your clients are, and you could write all that stuff down, but you don't know the first thing about publishing a website or how to put it all together. And it felt the same way as a book. So with a book, so Right Business Results were very helpful and were probably instrumental in helping to define what my book would be about. And it was all very much closely related to the business. So I thought, well, here's an opportunity to use a book in addition to a website. Let's use a book to explain the why, how, and what of what Wells Gibson's all about, I guess. Is Wells Gibson's approach to the world of financial planning. And that was pretty much it. But I didn't even going through that process with Georgia and her company. It took a few weeks for me to actually, when the picture got clear. It was very hazy to begin with. I still had an idea of of where we were going, but ultimately the book very much just represents the why, how, and what of our approach to financial planning, and in particular, how to bring clarity, contentment, and certainty to your financial life. And so that was really it. But you need help. I certainly needed help with the structure, the anecdotal type stuff, and as much as just how many words, how much is too much, how much is too little, and but yeah, wonderful experience. And I certainly, for anyone that's keen to write a book, I think it'd be certainly highly recommend using the services of a firm, somebody like Georgia and her company. Yeah. Certainly went a long way to helping me. And particularly, I think chapter 1 was maybe the hardest chapter. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 were the easiest, because chapter 2 is obviously just focusing on why sensible investing is important. And that chapter is authentic investing. And then chapter 3 is the 6 financial strategies around, cash flow, risk management, tax, and so forth. And then chapter 4 is the importance of, for anyone, if they're serious about their financial future, to engage with a trusted financial planner. But chapter 1 was probably the hardest, because the chapter 1 is the why, my why, and my story, some of which we've talked today about how I came into financial planning. But the process was a long. I think from the start to the book being published, it was probably close to 18 months, I think. Wow. It was probably about 18 months the process took. I think it could have happened sooner. But of course, we had COVID and it came along, and
you were running a business full time as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also trying to be a husband and a father to 3 daughters, and it's not easy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And then the podcast came on the back of writing the book to kind of help, break it down and break specific ideas down for the public to understand a bit more.
Yeah, I think so. And the podcast seemed a natural, the Purposeful Wealth podcast. It seemed to be the right thing to follow on with. In all truth, I think since the start of the year, other distractions have got in the way. I perhaps reflecting on what we have recorded, we possibly haven't used as much of the content from the book as possible. But like a lot of these things, I guess for me with the podcast, I was attracted to the idea of trying something that scared me. I think launching a podcast, we're always self-conscious about how we sound, or in the same way with camera, how do we look on camera and so forth. But it was just something I thought, why not? Let's just go for it. So it's probably been a little bit random. Some of the content's a bit random, but I think the more you do it, then the more you get confident with it. And perhaps, I think the plan is, combined with the book, we're actually doing a relaunch of the book in April, because hardback version of the book's available via Amazon now, and we think that's probably a good time to do a bit of a relaunch of the whole idea of purposeful wealth and living life on purpose. So that's the plan. So hopefully the content for the podcast will reflect more of the book and might come over as less random.
Yeah, well, I can certainly identify.
I think it's probably worked. From my perspective, I really do. I really see a wonderful opportunity for financial planning as a profession, and I think the only way that any of our firms are going to achieve that is by bringing in the next generation, whether it be apprentice trainees or graduate trainees.
Yeah,
and I think that a focus on a process and efficiency and embracing technology is key to that, and so that we can ultimately extend our reach and impact on the lives of more people. And thirdly, prolific marketing, I think, is key, because if you're wanting to stand, it's a crowded marketplace. From a client's perspective, they'll go to a website like Unbiased or Vouched For. It's everyone looks the same, if you like. And,
yes,
we're all financial advisors, or maybe not all chartered or so forth, but for clients, that really means maybe very little to them. And I think to get your message out is the point. We need to be embracing more prolific ways of marketing, whether it be the publishing of a book, a podcast, or vlogs. I think that captures the attention, I think, of more people. More people are listening to podcasts than ever. More people have got time. They're all on their devices, their tablets, their smartphones, and therefore have got 30, 40 seconds to watch a quick vlog. So I think the more firms embrace that more, what I would call more prolific marketing,
yeah,
the better, or certainly the more financial planning will continue to develop as a profession.
Yeah. Jonathan, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. Thanks so much I could talk to you all afternoon, but I know you are a busy man and have things to do. So we will let you go. And we've run out of time today. So thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related, and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.